Good morning, everybody. My name is Frank Giardiello, and I'm from Johns Hopkins Hospital. What we're going to talk about today is how to do a poster presentation. Now, I want to give you a little history on why we're even doing this. About 7 years ago, a colleague of mine named Helen Shields and I were talking about the poster presentation session. And we were commenting to each other that we thought it was the most fun venue of the whole DDW. But we also commented that we often walk around the poster session and we see the presenters having no fun at all. They typically are sitting by the chair. There's usually a chair at the posters. They're sitting by the chair, reading a book, not at all engaged in what's happening. And they get very little out of that session if that's sort of their approach. So my approach to this is that one needs to be a salesman for your data. And when I think about that, I think about when I was in high school, I worked at Sears. You know what Sears is? It's a department store. And I worked in the sporting goods department for 8 hours on a Saturday. And I was not happy about working 8 hours on a Saturday. And I realized there were two ways that you could get through that 8 hours. The first way was that you could stand behind the register and wait for people to come to you and ring up the sale, and then stand there for another 20 minutes and wait for the next person. Or you could go out in the aisles of the sporting goods department and talk to people, engage them, say, can I help you? Do you have any questions? That sort of thing. And what I realized is by engaging the public, I had much more fun, learned a lot more, and had a great time. So that's my sort of perspective on doing a poster presentation. So just like a salesman, you have to be prepared like a salesman. So what does a salesman do? Well, or a person, I should say, salesperson. What they do is they dress up, shirt and tie. They, the women are well dressed. They eat breakfast and lunch, so they have lots of glucose going through their cerebral cortex, because interacting with the public is a very fatiguing thing. I don't know if any of you have taught groups. It's very fatiguing. Even if you do 2 hours on it, you get exhausted. Also, I have some other thoughts, and they include, you should have a notebook or a dictaphone. Why? Because as people come up and talk to you about your poster, they're going to make some interesting comments. And you need the ability to write these comments down so that you can take them back and assess them. Also, you should have a business card. Why? Because often you might form a collaboration. You want to quickly give them your contact information. Now, some people, when they go through their poster, they like to point with their finger. Here, here's my results, here's my conclusion. Another way of doing that is to have a laser pointer and stand back and sort of use the laser pointer to outline the different parts of the poster. Now, another important thing is that before you do the session, you should walk around to the other posters in your section. Why? Because inevitably, there's someone else with a poster on your subject. And as these individuals walk by, they'll see the other person's poster, and then they'll come up to you and say, well, this other person did not find X, Y, and Z, or this other person had this result. And you need to be able to say, well, that person did this, or that person did that. Explain these differences. So you should always be aware of what other people have done on your subject. And finally, you should know your audience. Who are the people that are coming up to talk to you? Well, they're people that are interested in your subject. They're people that could be world experts on your subject. And probably most importantly, they're people that if you write up the abstract into a manuscript could be the reviewers of your manuscript. So you need to have that thought when you interact with these individuals. So, just as a salesperson, I like to engage the public. What do I mean by that? As somebody comes up and starts reading the first, begins to read my poster, I give them about 2 to 3 seconds. Then I go, can I help you? Can I take you through my poster? And in that way, I begin to engage them. And most people are lazy. They don't want to have to work through all this verbiage. They'll be glad to hear you talk about your poster. So now, as a salesperson, you need a sales pitch, right? You need to put together a sales pitch. In essence, what that is a summary of what you've done. But the summary, in my opinion, can only be 30 seconds to a minute long. I don't think you can go more than a minute. Why is that? Because the individuals seeing your poster are looking at dozens of posters. They have 2 hours to go through this meeting room to see posters. So they don't want to get too involved unless they get very interested in what you have to say. So I put together this. I'll give an example of a sales pitch, and this is just a prompt. So I'm going to say, you know, my subject is the risk of colorectal cancer in juvenile polyposis. So juvenile polyposis is an autosomal dominant disease in which patients get many juvenile polyps in the colon. And the association of colon cancer to juvenile polyposis is unclear. So what we did is we had 50 juvenile polyposis patients, and we did a relative risk analysis looking for the risk of colon cancer in these individuals. And what we found was the risk of colon cancer in these juvenile polyposis patients was 8 times that of the general population. And the lifetime risk of colon cancer was 40%. And we looked for other cancers in the population, and we didn't find it. So consequently, our conclusions are that patients with juvenile polyposis are at high risk for the development of colorectal cancer, and they should have frequent colonoscopic surveillance. That's my sales pitch. Now, at the end of that sales pitch, the person coming by may have questions, right? And that's when you get into the details. When they ask about the details, then you can get into the details. So you need to be prepared for the questions. Abraham Lincoln was once asked to talk about how he put together speeches. And what he said is, I spend 1/3 of my time thinking about what I'm going to say, and 2/3 of my time thinking about how I'm going to answer the questions. So it's important to understand how to answer the questions. Now, a lot of poster presenters think that this is a one-way street. By that I mean, you're giving that person all this information, and you're not getting anything back. Not me. I think of it as a two-way street. What do I mean by that? I'm going to give you all this information, but then after that, I'm going to pick your brain about what you know. I'm going to ask you, okay, so have you seen any juvenile polyposis patients? What do you think about this relative risk? How about the way we did it? What do you think about that? I want to get feedback from these individuals, because they often know much more than you about the subject, and they may give you many very important comments about how to fix your data up. So I always try to pick their brain in a nice way, but I try to get something back from that interaction. The other thing is, always be on the lookout for collaborations. So you have 50 juvenile polyposis patients, and by the way, you have their blood in the refrigerator. And then this person comes by, and he's working on TGF-beta pathway. He's looking for genes in the TGF-beta pathway. So you say to him, well, or her, you say, listen, well, you know, I have the patients, and you're doing this in the lab. Well, maybe I can give you the blood, see if we can find another gene in this condition. That sort of thing. That there's always an opportunity for collaborations, and you have to be aware of that. The major thing is, you should always be pleasant. People are going to give you constructive criticism. They're going to, you know, they're going to tell you this is wrong, you should have done it this way. And some of it are that way. And some of it's valid and some of it isn't. But you should accept it, just accept it. And then you can ferret out later in a pleasant way. Accept it all in a pleasant way. And then, then afterwards you can ferret out what is valid and what is not valid about what they say. And finally, always have fun. So, if I had to summarize, my perspective is be a salesman for your data. That you should prepare like a salesman. Get dressed appropriately, eat, have some notebook to collect information, have your business card. Also, as a salesman, engage the public and have a sales pitch. Not a long one, but a good sales pitch that summarizes concisely what you did. And finally, try to get feedback from these individuals. Try to see if there's a collaboration that you can establish. And by all means, have fun, because it should be a fun experience. So with that, I'll stop and ask you if you have any questions about this that I might answer. Does this make sense? Have you ever gone through the exhibition hall there and see what those individuals, the salespeople there do? You walk by, they're saying, can I help you? What about a free this, or what about that? I'm sorry?
Not yet, I will.
You will, okay. So you can see that they're using these techniques, and I think you should use these techniques as well. Okay. Well, it was nice to see you all. I wish you the best of luck, and it was great having you as an audience. Thank you.
Thank you.